10 seconds? Go ahead.
Hi, Lois.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You bet. Welcome to the stage at Caffe, Lena. So this is episode number 3 in The Art of Community, which is a monthly gathering that we're hosting here at Caffe, Lena with people who are committed to the nonprofit sector, or the impact sector, as it's sometimes called. We're just looking to bring people together and have a conversation who are either donors to nonprofits, who work in nonprofits, who are served by nonprofits, because I think that underlying all of these wildly different organizations in our community, there's a shared spirit of wanting a healthy world for everybody. And I love to hear the story from these different directors of kind of how they got to their work. So Lois, Celeste, you are the executive director of the Saratoga Senior Center, which is an amazing organization that has grown by leaps and bounds during your time there, and I don't think that's just a coincidence.
Well, thank you very much. No, that's what I like to do, is grow, and seniors are certainly a huge part of our community and growing, largest demographic growing. So it's been a really fun project.
Great. So I would love to hear how you got on this path in life, and not just how you found the job at Saratoga Senior Center, but when did it happen in your life that you realized that you wanted to do something career-wise that had social impact? How did that come about?
I went to college for sociology and human behavior, study human behavior, criminology. I did some of that, kind of micro work, working with the client, county work, different things. And I think I had raised children through this. It was a little flexible at times. And then I think the game changer for me really was when I went to work with the Mechanicville Community Center and started a domestic violence program there. And it was still supposed to be like micro work and just, a satellite office. And it quickly shifted to developing our own agency. And that was really my first intro into the other side of human service, not just working with the client.
So when you say micro work, you mean more like one-on-one counseling kind of work?
Or just working with the client. So I'd worked in child protective services. I've worked in probation. I'd worked in juvenile homes, things like that. So it's working with someone one-on-one. Yes.
Helping them navigate a system,
Yeah.
helping them comply with something they need to comply with, all
Or
of
direct
that kind of
advocacy,
stuff.
even.
Yeah. Okay.
And the shift then changed after that.
So that's really interesting. So you went from being very immersed in sort of the stories and struggles of the people that you are working with to sort of seeing it from a different angle. What was that, just an opportunity that came about, or what? How did, and what was the difference when that started to happen?
I think this was a new funded program that I was hired to do. And again, I think it was supposed to be just a remote, it was located in Mechanicville, a remote program. So it was still supposed to be much more just hands-on and supporting other agencies. And it shifted. It just shifted probably in the first 2 weeks of me being there. So I had to develop an agency and develop a program. And I remember reading my first grant and thinking, and it was a state grant. So I was like, wow, this is like reading Latin here, what am I doing? But I really loved the energy of that and the development part of it. And I think that really shifted what I did in life and how I got to where I am now.
Wow, that just sounds like the nonprofit world, I have to say. It's like you're qualified to do one thing, you come in through the door to do one thing, and then suddenly, actually what's needed is something 100% different. And you just have to rise to the challenge, and you have to be a person who finds excitement in that. And it sounds like you did. Wow, so starting a domestic violence program, that... you must have been immersed in a lot of really kind of painful life stories. What was that like?
There were so many.
Yeah.
My background was also criminal justice and having worked in the courts. So it was a little bit of a natural fit there. But yeah, crisis work, I like crisis work. And it was hearing everybody was different, but it was so serious. And every story took a different path, and all the victims that we worked with and how to empower victims and listen. And I just told one of my interns, about support groups and how powerful a support group can be, just having peer supports. So, and them sharing their stories with each other and getting support from that.
Yeah, that's something that's come up in some of the other conversations, particularly in an organization that works with veterans, and how being able to talk about what you've been through with somebody who really gets it can be incredibly healing. Is there any element of that in what you're doing now at Saratoga Senior Center?
For sure. I talk about the wisdom of seniors, and what I've learned being there for the last 11 years is wisdom is not something you can get other than earning it. And the life stories of everyone walking in the door, you wouldn't even notice it. Some people come in and maybe are super active, and sometimes we don't even, we just know them. So we say hi by name every day, whatever. And then all of a sudden something shifts and you take the time to sit and listen. I think that's probably what I miss a lot is being more hands-on. As we've grown and gotten bigger, the staff, I probably spend less time hands-on with the seniors than I'd like. But I think the one commonality of this group is they are aging, and we are all aging. Every one of us is aging. But at a certain point, it's almost kind of a rite of passage to be this, to share your life, to share your stories. One of the nicest things about the senior center is oftentimes people relocate here or come here to be, near their children, or retire here, or lost their spouse and now they're on their own and try to meet people. And so we try to really, be it through exercise groups or art classes or trips or musical performances, whatever it is, have people come together, chit-chat groups, reminiscing groups, music and memories groups, and have them come together and share, like, play a song, and where were you when? What memory does this bring up? So I would say before COVID, we did a lot more of those peer support groups. We're bringing them back this semester with the students. So, and that's huge. You don't realize the history that's sitting in front of you.
Yeah, yeah. Who comes up with the ideas for all of those activities and programs? How does that come about? And is the addition of some of these activities part of what accounts for the growth in the organization?
Yeah, I would say, the growth has been an interesting path. When I started there 11 years ago, it was me and a part-time person. And Colleen is our program director. She's been with me 10 years this week. And so she is really in touch with bringing in programming. But I'd say the full staff, we'll just talk about what do they want. Or somebody will come in and say, hey, can we do mahjong? Can we play pinochle? Can we go on a trip here? Can we do trivia now? Whatever it is. And we're always like, sure. Sometimes I'll say to Colleen, you need to pull me back. You need to say no sometimes. But I think the greatest challenge to me were that our bylaws were 50 and older. And it was called a senior center. So the agency has been around over 65 years. And 50 looked very different back then. So when I took over, I think the greatest challenge was, well, how do we bring in our younger seniors? And so it was developing programs around that. And we still want to do that because we really want to be a resource in the community for older adults. And so it's, my average age is 70, 75. It's not... With that said, we have people well into their 90s, and everyone is welcome. But I think the programming has evolved based on the demand, and it's changed. Certainly, COVID changed it all. But, things that worked 5-10 years ago that we tried or didn't work, let's say, we're bringing back and they work again.
Yeah.
So it just depends what the need is. And it's a team effort.
It's funny. I can relate to what you're saying about just ideas come flooding in, and your job is to say yes and then figure out how to make it happen. And sometimes people will congratulate me for all the changes here and the growth and the programming, and I kind of I say thank you, but there's a part of me that's saying I'm not sure I came up with any of these ideas. I just said yes and tried to give people the support to bring their ideas and their creative energy to life in this space. You have a wonderful facility, and it's a precious resource because a lot of people with great ideas don't have any tools to bring them to life with. So that is just an amazing switch in population, though, from going with some very traumatic life stuff to working with seniors in a way that is very positive. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people that you serve who walk in the door because they're dealing with loneliness or isolation or grief or something like that. And so there's got to be a sensitivity around that, but it's not the same as dealing with, domestic violence. So what happened that made you leave that other work? Did you get burned out on it somehow? Were you ever thinking, I'm done with nonprofit work?
Oh, yeah. But not then. I think, my brain just functions. I'm a developer. I'm an innovative thinker. I sometimes feel like what I'm doing is very business, and it is. And we have to make ends meet as well. But, I developed that program, and I was there for 7 years. And then I think it was the time for me to go, partially because of my family and the demands on them. But I also felt I did what I needed to in building it. And so it was in the time between leaving Mechanicville and taking the senior center that I actually said, I'm done. I'm done with not-for-profit. My children were going off to college. I'm like, I really need to make some money, help get my kids through college. And so I started looking for different jobs. I actually found it very hard to try to change sectors at that point, based on what the experience I had. But this, in the middle of it, and I did some consulting with Unity House and developed some projects for them. And the ad came up for the senior center, and I'm like, oh, here we go again. And I called and got interviewed, and I thought, this is a good project. It was in very, very rough shape. It was completely ready to close their doors.
Oh, wow.
They were out of money. The space was a mess. There was really nobody coming in the doors. So I like a project. And I think I learned, when I made the shift before to the domestic violence program, that I like a project and I like to build and develop. So to me, this was something, it was the first time I worked in the community I live. So that was also kind of exciting to me. And, and we've kind of gone crazy with it since. And I remember at the interview, someone on the board saying, but you've never worked with seniors. And I'm like, that's okay. That's just an industry. It's just learning the industry and finding out, I can fix your business. I can fix your not-for-profit. I can grow your not-for-profit. I'll figure out seniors. People is what I do.
Yeah, that was a big revelation for me when I kind of figured that out somewhere along the lines that the job of executive director of a nonprofit, that it's like being an auto mechanic or something. It's not like you can only be an auto mechanic for that garage. It's a translatable skill. It's understanding how fundraising and public relations and inspiring vision and personnel management and facility maintenance and all of that all come together. You have to understand how that system works. And you're absolutely right that like the problems that one nonprofit has tend to be very similar, you know, to problems other nonprofits have. There's like 20 problems and they have one of them,
Yeah.
you know? So, but tell me this. So it sounds like you went to school for, if I'm not mistaken, you know, social work and things like that. How did you learn all of these management skills?
You know, I think I went to school for sociology, which is really the study of human behavior. So I think I also told the story this week to a friend of mine that I don't think I valued my education until I took this job. And I think part of it is because of the management. And as we've grown, and I'm really managing a much larger staff and a lot of volunteers and the whole thing, you know, management is a lot, and understanding people's personalities. So it's not just working with the people, but it's also understanding the people you are working with and trying to motivate that way.
So when we started growing here, I had kind of run things mostly by myself with my sound tech for a long time, and then when we were getting ready to do this renovation, we added somebody to help with just like financial management and supporting the fundraising. And then after we finished the renovation, we have a staff of about 10 people now. You know, it's just grown,
awesome.
grown. And I realized that I was really good at managing scarcity. I was really good at working 24/7, but I didn't really know anything about managing other people. And so I was very fortunate to have a board president who had a business degree. And he sent me, I opened up my mail one day and there was the E-Myth, which is like a basic, like the very first business book that a lot of people read, which is essentially dealing with that problem of thinking that you have to do everything yourself and that that's not really what it's about. It's about understanding the system of the organization, and then how do you start bringing in people to take pieces of it so that you can do what you're really good at and they can do what they're good at, and it just explodes. Like, you know, it just keeps growing and growing once you understand that principle. I listen to blogs. I read a lot of books. What do you do to learn this stuff?
I don't know. I think I go with it. My energy level is incredibly high. I think I drive my staff crazy sometimes because, as I've said to them, like, I'll drive you through that cement wall and I'm hoping you're coming with me, and let's go. We're going to do this. You know, let's get it right. So I think I just keep going through it. To me, it's fairly natural. I didn't know I had kind of this business sense into me, but, you know, I had a large corporation once say to me, like, you're really good at marketing. And I'm like, oh, okay. This just kind of comes, some parts to it come natural. And so, you know, for me, one of the greatest tools has been the collaboration we have with other not-for-profits and those impact sector groups that we have. It started early on when I was there with a couple of agencies, Franklin, Rebuilding, Captain, and the four of us, you know, 3-4 of us used to get together on a regular basis and just bounce things off of each other, support each other. And then as well, I built a resource board. So my board, you know, I made sure I had an attorney. I made sure I had some HR on there, finance, you know, and help build with me so that any gaps I really had, I had resources there for. So for me, it was more leaning on people around me. And not trying to be an expert in everything, but bringing that community together to support the agency. And it's been amazing. My board has been amazing. My staff's been amazing. Like I said, I know I drive them crazy. You know, one of my staff members said to me, you do realize your brain functions differently than most people's. And I'm like, really? Like, I never thought about it that way, you know, and it's stuck with me for a couple of years. And I'm like, okay. So, you know, it's really about resources, supports, other people in our position. I have 2 women in business that are very good friends that I we kind of mentor each other. And when things get totally different industries completely, but, have been very supportive for me. So it's talking to others, I think, and working with others.
Yeah. Yep. Do you have it is definitely not always the case that that senior staff, especially executive directors, work well with their boards. This is a classic problem in nonprofits. Oh, my board doesn't do anything, or the board might think this executive director, just won't listen to us, and she's just always going her own way, and we might have to get rid of her because we have no control over her. What? It sounds like you have a really healthy relationship with your board. Any advice to give to nonprofits that are struggling with that? How can they see their way forward out of that?
And it is different. I think when I was in Mechanicville, that was a different board, and it was a small community. And I think when I took this agency over, it was a board that was really, and an agency really struggling. And so I knew we needed to make changes. And, a few people who had hired me from the board, there was a drastic shift. I would say, I've had about 2 or 3 shifts over the 10 years of my board. And some of it's board recruitment and some of it is me recruiting a resource. And I think we went from the resource board to a fundraising development board, more of a corporate board to support us financially. And in doing so, I'm become really good friends with my board members. I just traveled with one this weekend, and yet, within the executive team and working with them, I like having people in places though that will also call me out, because when you're kind of at the top there, like, who do you have? Who are you talking to? So I think for me, it's really important to have that relationship. They trust me. I think they really trust me, and they give me a lot of latitude to do what I want, and they support. And we're going into a capital campaign right now, so for a new senior center, and just having them behind me, so there's a purpose. For me, one of the biggest things during COVID I worried about was the disconnect from the board. How much was there to do? Are the committees really functioning? Are the are we fundraising? Are we having events? And so I feel I was a little concerned and discussed this with my board recently of, are you getting something out of this? These are volunteers. We have a lot of volunteers that work for us, and you have to make sure it makes sense for them too. But
so yeah, that one of this will probably kind of ring true to you too, that we think of not just the people in the seats as the customers, but we think of our musicians as our customers, and we think of our volunteers as our customers. All of these people are people that you as an executive director are thinking about. Are we serving them? They might have showed up to help you, but there's a two-way there, and you have to make sure that they are getting what they came for, which is a feeling of helping, having an impact, making a difference in the world. And I think, giving people meaningful roles automatically leads to genuine appreciation for their contribution, automatically inspires people to want to do more. And I think, knowing that you have limits and that they know things you don't know is, you better have that attitude, because that's really healthy.
Yeah.
Wow. And in terms of managing people who work for you, any kind of key bits of advice that you think are important in terms of how you create a healthy workplace?
Oh boy, I probably could take some, because again, I push hard, and how do you appreciate? And maybe I'm too hard. So at times, I don't know, we'll do small little getaways and things, but it's not always. The one thing I think we can give in not-for-profit, because our pay rates are not always where they should be, is flexibility. So, but then you still have a job to do. So it's a catch-22. I don't know. I've had staff, I know I push them. I know I'm hard on them, and they probably want to kill me some days, but like I said, Colleen's been with me 10 years, and I go right down the list. And my volunteer coordinator is who's been amazing, just amazing, and he's going to leave after many years and starting as a volunteer himself. It burns you out, though. It definitely burns you out, and so I like to retain staff, and we've been lucky. We've been very, very lucky to retain quite a few of our staff.
That's great.
The majority of our staff.
Well, I would argue with the word luck, but well done.
I don't know.
And when you joke around and say they probably want to kill me, I drive them really hard. There's also embedded in that comment a sense that you have very open communication with people, and being honest and forthright with people, I think, is just so essential. Like, I'm going to drive you through the concrete wall. Get ready. This is going to happen. And you can like take the piss out of me for it if you want to. I can take it.
Yeah, I definitely say, I'm like, if something's going wrong in your life and you're really having a hard time, I'll absolutely be the first one to take the shirt off my back and help you. But with that said, I'm pretty open book, so you know where you stand with me, and I do push hard. But I think if you have said I've learned a lot under you, and that's great. I don't know.
So how about that burnout? I mean, it sounds like you get so much energy from starting new projects and digging into work that probably, I'm guessing that's one of the ways that you deal with burnout is by taking on more and starting new stuff. But do you have any tips about burnout for people?
You got to take care of yourself. And even, with this person that's leaving, like, I'll try to retain everybody as long as I can, but mental health is really important, and feeling good about yourself is important. And like I said, that flexibility, giving people the flexibility if they need it. And I don't know, burnout is trying to, coming from working in a domestic violence, and I was there when the tornado hit, right? So we did a lot of crisis work in Mechanicville as well. And then going to working with seniors, trying to say to people too, try not to get wrapped up. Like, this isn't crisis work. We want to be there every day and support, but looking at seniors like they've lived their whole life. They're fully capable of everything. So let's support and try to take steps back when you need. But again, burnout it happens to all of us. And I think people have to step away.
Yes.
I think you have to get away when you can.
Get away. And then the other piece is something you said a little bit earlier, that you kind of miss the face-to-face with the seniors, that you get so wrapped up in administration that sometimes you don't get close to the work that you're doing. And one of the previous people that I interviewed talked about how important it is for her to like go and sit on the porch with her veterans and to just hang out for an afternoon. And it brings her close to the purpose of the work again, and reminds her of how much she actually loves it after all.
For sure.
Right when she was about to tear her hair out.
Usually after like our big fundraiser years ago, again, I didn't have the staff that I have now. And so I was hands-on doing all of it. And after that, I would always go take a bus trip with the seniors. Yeah. I'd be the one to chaperone the trip and go back and just go spend a day.
Yeah.
And I try to get out into the agency and talk to people. I think one of the hardest things, and I learned it early on, is, you lose your seniors. We're all aging and death is a part of life, but some of it really hits you and you don't realize, I think, some of the deficits they live with, because they come in and half people will say, oh, I'm above ground today and I'm great and whatever. And then all of a sudden you get the call or you find out. And some of it is a kick in the gut for you. The first person I lost that I was, really struggle with, I miss everyone, but for some reason this person, and she used to stop in and there were all cultural pieces to her. Her family had similar ethnicities to mine. And the one day she was coming through and I was on the phone and I waved and I didn't get out to talk to her, and she didn't come in for 2 weeks, and we got the call from the family that she had passed. And I was like, oh, take more time to go spend with the seniors. It's really energizing. So I completely agree with everybody else. Going back to, getting away from the administration, getting away from managing staff and people, and the pressure of like, you got to make the bottom line work and you got to bring the money in one way or another. And, just going and sitting down, and so many will come in and just say thank you. Our volunteers as well. We recently did we do a volunteer thank you event every November. And everybody stands up and says what they do and why and where they came from and telling their story, right? Yeah. And so many of the stories were thanking us for the opportunities because they had lost their husband or this place gave them a sense of meaning to come to. So all those stories, going back to what you said, it's like, okay, here we go. We can do this again. This is great.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of our time, and I thank you so much for creating that space for seniors and so many incredibly enriching activities and just everything that you're doing for the community. It's wonderful.
It's fun.
So thank you, Lois. It's great to get to know you a little bit more. Let's do some collaborative projects together.
Absolutely. Love it.
All right.
Would love to. Thank you so much for having me. And you don't even take time sometimes to share these stories or any of it. And I appreciate it.
It's good to take the time. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.